Welcome to the Cooking Chat Food and Wine podcast. Today we continue our series called Virtual Winery Visits. In these episodes, we talk with winemakers and winery owners about their vineyards, the regions they come from, and the wines they produce. The goal is to give listeners a sense of what it's like to visit these wineries, while also sharing ideas for pairing their wines with food at home. Today, we're heading to California for a virtual visit to Dry Creek Vineyards, where I'm joined by Darren Abel, concierge and wine educator at Dry Creek. I'm also joined by Nasiatka, founder and chief wine officer at StephenUncorked. Hey, Darren. Hey, Stephen. Thanks for joining here.
Glad to
Hey,
be here.
absolutely. Good to see you again.
Yeah, well, we are recording on a Wednesday, and why not make it a Wine Wednesday, right? With Dry Creek Valley, which I've had off and on through the years, but Stephen kind of reconnected me with the winery, and I know through being a member of the wine club now, you get to see quite the lineup of wines that y'all have out there. So, but before we start talking about the details of the wine, we just want to give people context. Some people might be new to Dry Creek Valley. So, for those who are not familiar, Darren, could you give us just a brief little overview of the winery? Had to give the proverbial elevator pitch, somebody who doesn't know what Dry Creek Valley Vineyards is, give them a
For
minute or two
sure.
just to
Well,
background us.
Dry Creek Vineyard is a family owned, operated since day one. Started in 1972 by a young man at the time, a gentleman named David Stair. Dave grew up in the Boston area, went to MIT, and had the opportunity to live and work in Germany, where he fell in love with wine.
Ah,
Lots of details that I won't go into right now, but basically got really interested in wine, and a light bulb went off in his head about maybe starting his own venture.
mhm.
Um, One thing led to another, and he headed out west, studied at University of California, Davis in their wine program, and during his time in the summer would drive up and down the coast looking for land, and he ended up in a very sleepy, at the time, very sleepy agricultural area, which was dedicated to plums, actually prunes,
Oh,
plums in
oh,
which they
okay.
they
Hmm.
they dried. A little fun fact: our AAA or college collegiate baseball team is called the Healdsburg Prune Packers, and
I love it.
yeah,
Boom packers.
and when he got here, people looked at him like he was, a little crazy, but he was steadfast and wanted to start a winery. And Dry Creek Vineyard is the first winery that's documented post-prohibition in the valley. Now,
Oh, wow.
pre-prohibition, there were Italian, German, Swiss immigrants, mainly Italian, that settled in the area. And at that time, call it 1880 to 1920, making wine, basically distributing it back east. And then the government got involved. And after that, I guess it was just the nature of the country, World War II, Great Depression. As far as I've read, it was, and then it became very sleepy and agricultural. And he very much reinvigorated the area. Um, he and the family the first to plant Sauvignon Blanc, and that's, in my opinion, the biggest pioneering effort for Dry Creek Valley. The first to release a Sauvignon Blanc, the first to grow Sauvignon Blanc in Dry Creek Valley. And
Okay.
today the winery is managed and run by his daughter Kim Stair Wallace. She's been running the program, running the winery now for, I want to say, a couple decades,
Wow.
and is amazing. And it's just a it's an iconic winery. We were able to
Yeah.
take the name of the valley because we got
Mhm.
here so early, and
Oh,
people
first
people
first
people
movers. Very
Yeah, we
good.
got
yeah,
there first.
people know us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
great. I've been working for the winery for over 13 years, so it's a testament, a very
well,
special place.
yeah. And
Great.
I'll want to hear a little bit more about how you got to be there,
Sure.
but first, just to, that historical context is helpful, but we're calling this series Virtual Winery Visits, and hopefully it might entice some people to join you in person for an in-person visit. But for now,
Yeah.
can you sort of paint a picture if I pulled up to the winery, kind of paint the scene?
Well,
What does it look like? And some people, this is audio only for some folks, so I am
gotcha.
seeing your background. So
Yeah, so
I'll let you do
I
the
was gonna
script there.
mention the background, but
Some
yeah, so
people will see that.
if people are visiting, they can actually see the background. You pull in and you're surrounded by actually coastal redwoods that line the property. Which actually, I asked David, our founder, how tall they were when he founded the property. Well, he planted them. They were, you can't really see them. They were 10 feet tall in 1978. They surround the property. And when you come in, you're coming into a classic, beautifully manicured picnic area surrounded by all kinds of gorgeous flowers, Japanese maples, and a beautifully kept grass. We're one of the only wineries in the area that allows you to kind of bring in outside food and picnic.
Oh, nice.
So it's just sort of a welcoming oasis when you come here. There are a lot of vineyards, a lot of wineries that are surrounded by sweeping views of beautiful rolling hills and vineyards. And as soon as you sort of uh, poke your head outside the picnic area, that's where you get the vineyards. But once you come in, you're just kind of immersed in this really very peaceful uh, background with flowers and big trees and just a beautiful landscape. Oh, and a building that looks much older than it actually is.
Oh,
It's a building that was built in 1972, so it is old. It's 55 years old, but it's modeled after a Loire Valley chateau. Not I don't know if there's not one in particular, but
mhm.
there's a lot of chateaus and castles that are in the Loire Valley. David and family spent some time in the Loire, and that's the inspiration, the vibe, and very much the wines. Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc were the first grapes that really inspired the winery.
Great. That's great. Stephen, I know you've had a chance to, I don't know if it's multiple times you've been out there, but tell us about I know you've had a chance to visit probably quite a few wineries at this point. So tell us about your first impression
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
visited.
Well, I think it's interesting. Well, number one, that is good to know, Darren, as far as bringing in food from outside, right? Because with the Dry Creek General Store right up the street that
Yeah,
has
right across the street.
literally, it was one of the best meatloaf. It wasn't beef, but whatever the meatloaf was, it was
Oh,
incredible that day, and
wow.
that would have paired also very, very well with the Chenin Blancs that you have there.
Wow.
But no, so my first visit to the winery was in February, and absolutely just beautiful. I think to Darren's point, I can definitely see the allure inspiration for the building. But then also, even at that point in time, just the flowers, the trees, the massive trees at this point compared to what it was certainly 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And certainly a warm welcome, great hospitality. To be fair, I was going in there to have a conversation around, supporting the winery as a ambassador, and it was pretty impressive the breadth of wines. And also interesting was, as of course I wanted to try them all. Definitely had to do a bit of spitting as well because I think I had about 18 to 20 of the 30-ish that were available.
Yep.
And you can't do that with an ounce or 2 ounces of each without some spitting at that point. And maybe taking a little break and some water in between. But no, I was beyond impressed with the caliber of the wines. I think the one that struck me the most from right off the bat was the sparkling Chenin Blanc.
Mm.
That's one of those wines that you do not see very often. And consistently, when I've poured that for guests, that always gets one of the top receptions. Number
Yeah.
one, because they're like, I've never had a sparkling Chenin Blanc before. Some people have never had a Chenin Blanc at all before. but then just given the quality, the cleanness, and just how well it goes from a food perspective.
Yeah, if I can jump in real quick. So David and Stephen, we didn't always make a sparkling Chenin. We've always made a Chenin Blanc since day one. Originally, we had some Chenin from the area, but then who knew that Clarksburg, the Sacramento Delta, would become the state capital of Chenin Blanc.
Huh.
We have a
Mhm.
relationship with a grower that dates back over 40 years, and it's such a fabulous area. And so we've always made a still Chenin, but for our 50th anniversary a few years ago, we decided to make a celebratory wine, and why not make a bubbly version? So we make the
Mhm.
still wine here, and then we partner with a local company called Rack and Riddle, and they
Mhm.
make a fabulous. They finish it for us, and it's absolutely delicious, and it's unique. It's you won't, just like the wine that we're going to taste today, the Marinus. Very rarely will you find a sparkling Chenin around here. We
Yeah.
Yep.
call it a a Cremant style because, well, it's not in Champagne, but it is the Champagne style. It's bone dry, but it's for people that like bubbles and kind of are new to bubbles. I think it's fantastic. It's certainly bolder and drier than a Prosecco, but
Mhm.
it's not as heady or complex as some champagnes are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll probably touch more upon the dinner we had recently, but that's what we started with. It's a great way to kick things off. I want to you set up the backstory, Darren, of Dry Creek, and but what I'd like to hear a little bit now is so there's a long history, but a lot of
Yeah,
wineries have had history and aren't, had to figure out how to get under a bigger umbrella. But what would you attribute the longevity of being able to stay a family-owned business? What are y'all doing there that's kind of unique and helping you stay out there as an
for
independent
sure. Well,
winery?
I mean, things were, it's I've been working here for a long time. I feel like family, and I've worked very closely with Kim, and so I've heard a lot of stories, and how David started the winery with a vision, and then Kim and her husband Don took over officially in 2006. But just real quick, the winery started with David as a vision to make really good wine, to make good wine that was accessible and affordable. Well, we did that for quite some time, but there came to a point where the wines needed to get better, and it was evident for Kim and her husband. We always had the reputation of being having good wine, and it was affordable. But when they took over, they wanted to make better wines that were more grounded, and more reflective of the wines that were from Dry Creek Valley, because we were getting into uh, we were making wines that were Sonoma County, so they were coming
Oh,
from. We had vineyards that were all over, and we were sourcing wines from different areas, and they weren't bad, but something needed to change, and they refocused on what was in Dry Creek Valley. Um, One thing I wanted to really, talk about, and I have a feeling this question would come up, but I might as well talk about it now, is
yeah,
that
sure.
what makes Dry Creek Valley very special is two things: the climate and the soil.
Hmm.
Um, the climate in the summertime between July and harvest ripening or major ripening is about 85, 90 degrees during the day. It was about 88 the high today, which is perfect. And
Yeah.
then tonight it's going to drop to about 55 degrees.
Hmm.
So it's the big
Comfortable
shift in
sleeping weather, huh?
temperature between day and night. It's called a diurnal shift in temperature that allows the grapes to hang on the vine for an extended period of time, and they achieve balance. They achieve the sugar that they need and the acidity to keep it balanced. And then, of course, we have soils, a variety of different soils that drain really well. We get most of our water in the winter and the spring, and these vines are able to store up that water and tap into it when needed. And getting to your point, how do we stay relevant? Well, we are a traditional winery. We focus on what this valley does best. We mapped out the varietals with the climate and the soil, and the ones that do really well are the warmer weather varietals and the ones that benefit from those cool nights. So Sauvignon Blanc.
Yep.
We make multiple Sauvignon Blancs. At first, it was just the Fumé Blanc. We can touch on that in a little bit. But now we make different versions of the grape. So the way we kind of evolved was not just making one Sauvignon Blanc and saying we're just going to make one and we're going to stick with it for the rest of the rest of our time. No, we make different single vineyard Sauvignon Blancs, and we make a blend called our Marinus, which is a white Bordeaux-style, which you won't be hard-pressed to find anything else like it. We make 9 different Zinfandels, 6 of them being single vineyard. So at one time we just had, basically just a couple different different Zinfandels. Now we're doing Zinfandels that are reflective of different slopes, different soils, different age of the vines, etc. And then finally, traditionally, what we have always done are blends, Bordeaux-style blends. So not to digress, but we look at everything else. I think we could grow everything under the sun here. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should follow every trend. We could make an orange wine. It's just not in our it's not in our DNA. So we're sticking with what has served us best, but also changing it, tweaking it, and elevating it to stay relevant.
Yeah, that sounds great. There's a lot here with that history and your experience
Yeah.
with the wine, or we could probably go a couple hours, but there's not a World Cup game tonight, I don't think. But
Well, I
but
mean,
anyway, we
like
could
I said,
keep no. But
go ahead.
oh, what I was gonna say is, we have some wines that we want to, I think we can kind of pepper in some of the continued
Sure.
education about the region and the winery as we talk a little bit more in depth about some of the wines. And as you may or may not know, I have a big focus on cooking chat on food and wine pairing. So
Yes.
we want to taste the wine, but then brainstorm about what kind of foods might go well with the wines we're talking about. So the first wine, you've already mentioned it, so we wanted to try and learn about the Marinus, which, as you started introducing, as a Sauvignon Blanc blend. But do you want to tell us a little bit more about
Yeah. Well,
the vintage and
specifically,
what's in this?
like I mentioned, we're deep rooted in the Loire Valley, which grapes like Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé, which are sharper than this, grassier, more minerally. This is a wine that you would typically find in Bordeaux. It's a blend. It's predominantly Sauvignon Blanc, and then we supplement two other grapes, Semillon and a grape called Muscadel. Both of those grapes bring body and aromatics and depth and complexity. This wine is quite different than our other Blancs because it does see oak aging.
Yeah.
It's a combination of French oak, chestnut, and acacia, and quite a bit of it is barrel fermented. Actually, I think about 70% is barrel fermented. Only a small amount new oak. We don't want a heavy amount of new oak to overwhelm it. In fact, I don't really get a ton of toasty notes on it. What I do get is a weight and a softness and a complexity. This wine is as it sits in the glass a little bit and kind of comes up to temperature, I do get a little bit more of the kind of vanilla notes to it. It's certainly not nearly as punchy or heavy on the oak as, let's say, a new Chardonnay.
Hmm.
a new oak Chardonnay.
Yeah, I do see what that was one of my first impressions. I've had it, I opened it about an hour ago and did a little taste and I was gonna ask if I was guessing it must have probably seen some oak because it just for something that's primarily Sauvignon Blanc, it definitely the body and the complexity, I think, and I guess that's coming from the blend a
For
little bit.
sure.
I don't know. You said it's mostly Sauvignon Blanc, but it seems like the Semillon and the Muscadel are bringing a fair amount to the table in terms of the nuances and the flavors.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
because I mean, with Sauvignon Blanc, what you're, the hallmark, the integrity is the grapefruit and the lemon and the
yeah,
grassiness and the zestiness, and you don't want to take that away by oaking it too much. And
right.
I just think this wine is really really complex. It's certainly the most nuanced wine, most nuanced white wine that we make.
Yeah,
I love it. It has quickly become um, some everyone's favorite, to be honest.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
Stephen,
I'll put it this way. There is
yeah,
pretty much now always a bottle of this at the ready in the fridge. Now, sometimes I feel too compelled to drink it too quickly or with other folks, so I do have the Corvin on it just for
yeah,
preservation's sake this time. But no, I agree, and quite frankly, the white Bordeaux's are some of my favorites. So then when you add and a big part is that Semillon, the touch of it,
yeah,
again with some of the oak. But for me, I agree, this is absolutely one of my favorite wines in the portfolio.
yeah. It's very good. And would a is the breakdown, and maybe it varies on a white Bordeaux, but I was
Yeah.
curious the extent to which,
So
like, I feel
what
like a
I've
Sauv Blanc's a little more pronounced than this
what
thing.
I've yeah what I've read in Bordeaux, it's mainly Semillon based, and then they
Yes.
supplement with Sauvignon Blanc and
Yeah.
Muscadel. So I think even in France, they might even be a little fuller. What I love about this one being Sauvignon Blanc pronounced is that the backbone is still high in acidity. It's still bright,
Hmm.
so it's still refreshing. It's not just a food wine, although we'll talk about the food. It's still
Yeah.
you still get that freshness and that tartness, even with those other two varietals, and even with the addition of the oak aging, you're not losing that freshness.
Yeah. So speaking of pairings, Stephen, have you tried this with anything good, or would you incline to try a pairing with this?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So and I know we'll talk about the dinner in a minute, right? And we had a dinner in the past, and we did a Chenin Blanc and a Sauv Blanc just to kind of do the side by side and to carry forward with the sparkling Chenin Blanc that we had. This I think would have absolutely gone incredibly well with that dish as well, which was baby greens with a citrus olive oil vinaigrette. Like that would
Yeah.
have been a very nice pairing.
Hmm.
I think what's interesting with this is as I think to doing oysters, which are one of my favorite things, and
Yeah,
probably what I'm going to grab tonight after this, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But when I think about the pairings, a lot of times I enjoy a Pouilly Fussé or or I would go with a unoaked, just something with not oaky. Of course, you can always do bubbles. That's a safe choice, but something not oaky as Chablis. And so when I think about this wine, where it has that touch of it, but by no means overbearing, I think this would be really, really nice with oysters, and I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think what I would like to do is like an oyster trio,
Mm.
one with a classic sort of mignonette, and
hmm
then I really think that this would hold up to an oyster Rockefeller
Mm.
with
I,
because it
I
does
agree.
have that body, um, that would pair really well with some cheese and some butter.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to be out there in August, so we'll have to have you set that up out there, Darren.
Let's
There
do
you
it. I'm
go.
sure they'll be happy. I'll bring out the Weber on the lawn and we'll start
Nice.
grilling.
Perfect.
Well, when I did this, I was thinking, oh, like Stephen, I try to make use of the Corvan when doing things like this. So I Corvan the red, but I was like, my cooking plans, I might be able to have this with dinner. So I did. I made a little quick pan-seared scallops, which similar to Stephen and I collaborated on dinner earlier this year where I did something similar. And really nice with, you
Absolutely.
gotta cook them with just real quickly, just a little sear on the outside,
Yeah,
simple preparation. It's really good.
scallops. I mean, I think lobster with some citrus, a citrus
Mm.
butter.
Yeah, that's,
Um,
I did a little squeeze of lemon. That was
yeah,
kind of encourage it. Yeah.
and I eat a lot of just because it's budget friendly. A lot of I love to play with the air fryer and do air fried chicken. So like a
Hmm.
Oh,
buttermilk marinated air fried chicken with just some lemon and potatoes would be perfect.
ooh, that
Yep,
sounds
I agreed.
delicious. Yum.
Yeah, I'm getting very hungry now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these wines across the board are super versatile.
Yeah.
And once I mean, this is what you do. So, I mean, it's fun. Once you get a taste of pairing,
Mhm.
it's hard to go back.
It strikes me that these wines, at least from what I've had so far, are very food friendly, but not so, there are definitely some, I'm thinking of certain Italian wines. It's like, man, if you don't, I mean, they're just not pleasant to have if you're not
100%.
having with a
Yeah,
meal. I can't think of any of these that I've had that I don't also enjoy just sipping on their own, but definitely will enhance a lot of meals that you can put on the table.
for sure. Yeah, this is special. I'm a big fan of this wine. I'm happy that Kim. We make multiple Meritage wines, and just to touch on that, Meritage, often
Yeah.
mispronounced Meritage, English
Yeah.
word, came about in 1988 to help describe blending with the Bordeaux varietals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we make multiple Meritage red wines, which are either Cabernet or Merlot based, but this is the first that we've done with the white Meritage
Yeah.
grapes.
Very good. Well, let's turn to the red.
Definitely a fan.
We picked a red to try. At least I was interested in trying Petit Syrah. I know we had some other great wines. Did we have? No, we did not have the Petit Syrah at the dinner that Steve and I have been talking about, but I think we were thinking about getting variety. I also, um, one of the things I do in cooking, Chaz, I have certain grape varietals that are a little under the radar. I have some articles that try to educate people and give them
Yeah,
pairing ideas. And my Petit Syrah article, if you Google what to eat with Petit Syrah, you'll probably see my post on that topic. So we'll have to add to that whatever we come up with to serve with this Petit Syrah. So I'd be curious, maybe before we talk about the wine itself,
yeah.
Darren,
Yeah, kind
maybe
of
set it up like, is this something you've been making for a while? Is it
our
a
relationship.
newer
Well,
part of the
yeah,
line?
well, first and foremost, Dry Creek Valley or California in general, the heritage grape is Zinfandel.
Mm,
Native to Italy and Croatia. But every amazing Zinfandel winemaker or winery will pretty much swear by uh, a small or larger percentage of Petit Syrah um, to blend in, both
ah,
for color and along with color for structure. It's a
Yeah.
very small uh, grape, thick skins,
hmm
and a lot of skin to juice ratio.
hmm
So Zinfandel is a little thinner on its own, and if you have either a clone or an area that gets a lot of deep color, then great. But if most Zinfandels could use a little bit of help, so all of our Zins have at least 5% Petit Syrah. Some have more, but if you have when you get the right vineyard and the right vintage, Petit Syrah on its own is pretty amazing. I
hmm
should note that it's native to eastern France, but it almost grows exclusively in California. It's very very hard to find it elsewhere, and
Yeah.
um, it's a unique. Well, it's a special grape. It's
Yeah.
full bodied, it's dark, it's tannic, and it is bold.
Hmm.
It is not for everyone, but it is an amazing food wine. It's
hmm
super versatile with food. We'll talk about that in just a second. What I will say about our Petit Syrah, after talking to our winemaker and doing a little reading, there's a few ways to treat it, and a lot of wineries, what they do is they call it extended maceration, where they keep the skins and the juice, or the when it's wine, they keep it in, or before it's actually fully fermented, they keep it in contact for anywhere from 14 to 20 days, which is a lot. And that you're
Yeah.
really extracting all the color and a lot of harsh tannins. For
Hmm.
us, we do a real gentle extraction, just about 9 days. So when I'm tasting this wine and I'm swirling it around, it's dry and it's, medium plus tannins, but it is not like I need a glass of water. It's not like I
Yeah.
need food immediately.
Hmm.
It is very, very um, approachable right out the gate, and that's what I like about it, because I've tasted some petite, and it's like it either needs a couple more years or it needs food right away. Um, but this one for sure is very approachable,
Yeah, I use the adjective. I think it's a pretty wine. It's really got more finesse than I think most Petit Syrahs
for
that I've
sure.
tried. It's got some layers of flavor. It's definitely got that lot of certainly bright red fruit and all that, but it's not a fruit bomb per se, like you might get from some other Petit Syrahs. And I noticed the bottle's a little far away, so I don't have it in front of me, but I think the alcohol is a little lower than you sometimes
13,
might see.
13.9,
That's
which,
very low for a
yeah, with most petites are kind of like on par with heavy zins. I kind of
yeah,
put zin and petite syrah in the same um, sort of category, because they're
mhm,
often lumped together.
yeah.
Um, Typically don't get maybe the jammy flavors unless you let it sit on the vine for a really long time.
Mm,
And going back to kind of our philosophy of making wine and growing grapes, around harvest time, we spend an exceptional amount of time combing through the vineyards, taking samples from different parts of the vineyard, bringing them to the winery, measuring the sugars, measuring the acidity before we
Hmm.
actually, even 2 weeks prior to before we actually pick. So we know, what we're getting into. The last thing you want to do is get out there and harvest, and you're stuck with clusters that are 60-70% raisins, and then you have to really, wineries manipulate the wine. We don't do that. We have an idea of we have historical data about when these grapes are being picked. One last thing about this Petite Syrah, and maybe this clone or this vineyard, they are known for their really, really small grapes. I talked to the winemaker. He said that this vineyard actually has slightly bigger, so we may be a little bit less skin to juice, which
uh,
makes it more,
Listening.
makes it juicier, makes it softer,
Yeah,
instead of dealing with just pure kind of coarse tannins.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
No,
Yeah.
the tannin, it's definitely very got that little velvet aspect to it. It's definitely very
David,
good.
what would you pair this with?
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm thinking now. It definitely feels like something on the grill.
Yeah,
Mm.
I was going to say, sadly, I don't have this in front of me this time, but I have had it before, and I agree with all the
Stephen,
assessment.
it's very good.
Yeah, I was just, I truly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
When I was out there was the first time I had it, and again, when you see a Petit Syrah, of course, I had to go for it.
Mhm.
My challenge there, quite honestly, was there's so many Zins, and I could not try them all, like how to pick the ones that I chose there.
Yeah.
But that for me was one of the sleepers. The other sleeper for me was the Cab Franc.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's sold out, unfortunately, at this point. But
Oh,
that
yeah,
was,
that's coming back in the fall. But yeah,
yeah, I'm looking forward to the reemergence of that one because it
the
truly
Cab
looks.
Franc is our. We only make about 100, 120, 150 cases of that.
oh,
That's
really?
our least produced wine. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of a cult wine too. It's a perfect balance of. Well, anyway, we'll do another podcast
Yeah.
with the Cab Franc.
There you go. No, this
Um,
is great.
That's perfect.
My first thought, I was trying to cheat a little, unless I meant to do this before the show, but I was thinking like, I mean, it. I love pork tenderloin. I was thinking some grilled pork tenderloin
yeah,
would be nice here. Because I've seen
I think
I've done pork
anything,
chops with this.
yeah, anything with a little pepper crust on it,
Mhm. Yeah.
even if you didn't, let's say, even without a sauce, but what I think it does need something bold,
Yeah.
any sort of, bold kind of barbecue sauce. I think Chipotle would
Oh
work
yeah.
really well, something fruity.
Hmm.
I love cooking with a lot of, Mexican flavors. I definitely don't have the patience. Nor, well, one of these days I'll make my own mole, but
Oh
that,
yeah. I could.
but I think actually one thing that I do, I love to make chili, and
Hmm.
my secret, I'll reveal it, is to take a really good mole and take
Yeah.
take two really big fat tablespoons of that mole paste
Yeah.
and incorporate it into my chili, and it just, I mean, well, one, for the color, it's amazing. It becomes really dark and very rich, and there's just something about it,
Hmm.
just that kind of that unique earthy umami spice
Oh
that I
yeah.
think would, yeah, I think mole would do really well. I think Moroccan spices, lots of cumin,
Yeah.
cardamom, things like that. As long as it's not too spicy, capsicum heat, I
Yeah.
think you're
That makes sense.
fine. Red wine and too much actually chili heat don't work.
Hmm.
But
And
you know,
that's one of my favorite wine educations to do is show the effect of putting tannins and something spicy together, right?
yeah,
It's
just you either need something sweet or a cold beer.
yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I was just looking. I actually paired a petit syrah with like a I do a butter chicken that's not super spicy. It's more
Yeah,
savory with some flavor, but a lot of flavor, and then a
sure.
side with a squash, curried squash, and it worked pretty well. So, but I
Yeah, I
love
mean,
that chili. That I'm definitely gonna have to
oh
try that
yeah,
chili tip.
yeah, something rich. I mean, you can do. What would be really nice is like a braised short rib with sort of a like a hoisin,
Oh, yum.
kind of a
Yep.
hoisin beef reduction would do really well.
Well, Darren, I promised the audience that we did not rehearse this, but you set up a perfect segue because one of the last things I want to touch upon was Steve and I have alluded to this wonderful menu that we put together with to feature the Dry Creek Vineyard wines with a lineup of Italian food and one of, I don't know, I was going to ask you your favorite pairing, but definitely that short rib gnocchi that we had with
Oh yeah.
do you want to talk about the pairings we did with that, Stephen?
Yeah, so it's always interesting, right? And if any traditional wine tasting is going to be you start at the sparkling, then you go to you go to the whites, and you go in increasing, then you go to the rosés, then you go to a Pinot Noir, and then you end up at whatever the biggest boldest Cabernet is, right? Like that's typically the journey that you would take in a wine tasting. And it was interesting in doing the menu that we pulled together that you know that generally is the way it is, but I like to be a little bit unconventional and ultimately to do the right thing. And so it was fun because, yes, to David's point, the second entree that we had with this dinner was a braised short rib with gnocchi. And what we paired with that is we did each one of our five courses with two wines because I think that's really a lot of fun, and you experience the differences between one and the next. And I'll talk about another one in a second. But the short rib with the gnocchi was one of my favorite. We did it with the Mariner and the Endeavor, right? So the Mariner, of course, being a nice blend, very Bordeaux style, and then the Endeavor being mostly Cabernet, big, bold, and both of those were incredibly good and fantastic with that dish. And I think actually in the room we had a pretty good diversion, like where some people really preferred one versus the next, but everybody agreed they both worked very well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the individuals who I know very well, he's usually very much a Pinot Noir guy. And he said, "Oh my God, these Cabernets, or these Cab Four, they were just absolutely fantastic." So he was over the moon. And so the good thing is some additional sales, of course, for Dry Creek and for me. But he was truly over the moon with both of those. And Mariner is one that as that is available a little bit more easily. I try to
Yeah.
feature in some of the different events that I do because everybody loves that wine.
Oh, I love it. Stephen had that on a, and you can give give your official spiel, but my version of was, Stephen Uncorked curates some great events. We did this partnership that we're talking about for the nonprofit I run by day called Social Capital Inc., but a lot of business networking events. Stephen kindly invited me to one he's doing for another business networking group, and I think was it no, it was Bastille Days coming up. For whatever reason, you had a lineup, but I know that you said, hey, I could only stay for a little while. Steven's like, you got to be sure to try this one. And
Yeah.
I think it wasn't just Dry Creek that night. It was a variety of
No, that
wines.
that was a variety. It was things that I had
And
to
my favorite that night, hands down, I think you had a real champagne. You definitely had a great lineup, but the Mariner really stood out, and so that was a good
Yeah,
one.
that's a signature wine. That one is probably our most ageable.
mm,
Mhm.
Right out the get-go, it is people love it, but man, once you taste that wine after it's been in the bottle for about 7 or 8 years,
Mm,
it's also another level.
yeah.
I'll
So,
have to get you an aged bottle.
ooh, that's
now we're
now.
talking.
2019, it's not too long ago. I mean, they're amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be a fun vertical tasting to do. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that as a separate event because
Yeah.
and not to get too far into other things, but one of the events that I'm looking at doing is to do a, Zin and barbecue tasting with
Oh,
the various infidels of Dry Creek Vineyards. So
that'd
but
be awesome.
that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Count me in that one, Steve.
So we should probably think to wind this down, a few things want to cover, both maybe starting with you, Darren. Just talk about if people are thinking about visiting, haven't visited before,
Yeah,
what's the experience like? When should they come?
for
Sounds like there's some
sure.
packs of food.
Well, we are open 7 days a week. We're getting into well, we're busy in the summertime and the early fall, but our hours are 10 a.m. We open at 10. We do our first tasting at 10:30. We do our last tasting 3:30. Reservations are recommended. However, you can always drop in. If by some reason we are completely so busy that we can't take you for a seated tasting, at the very least, you can enjoy wines by the glass, by the bottle. We are picnic friendly, as I mentioned. You feel free to bring in outside food. You can go to the general store, or you should see some of the boards that people come in and build their own elaborate charcuterie boards. We
Nice.
are family friendly as well. There are a lot of wineries that don't allow children. We are a family owned winery, so we've always been respectful of people that want to bring in their little ones. We just ask that you keep them close by and keep an eye on them. Um, that's short of me leaving my contact information. I am the concierge on property, so I can certainly offline leave my information. We can attach it.
Yeah.
My contact information, both my phone and both my phone and my email, and or certainly you can just go to the website and book.
Great. That sounds great. And Stephen, maybe if you could talk a little bit about the wine club and maybe also speak to, I think I'll throw this to you if you want to add anything, Darren. I know you can find some Dry Creek Vineyard wines at a lot of wine shops, but
Yeah, in fact,
you're only getting a segment of it. So if you want to talk about the benefits of the wine club and online and stuff.
yeah, let me just do that real quick because I've been, doing this for quite some time. The wine club, obviously, is the best way to get the wines. It's just twice a year. It's a small amount, 4, 6, or 12 twice a year. We do a fall shipment, and we do a fall shipment right before Thanksgiving, and then we do a spring shipment, April and May, 4, 6, or 12. Different clubs. We have a Blanc and Rosé club. We do a white and red club. We do a Zin club and a Bordeaux club. But the key is everything is customizable. So you can pick and choose what you want, as long as it's kind of in that sort of value of what we would normally choose because we typically pre-choose. We send an email to you. Let's say it's 2 whites and 4 reds. If there's a Pinot in there, you don't want Pinot, you don't have to have it. You can substitute something else. And yeah, shipping, we do flat rate shipping. So 4 bottles is $25 shipping, 6 bottles is $15 shipping, and a case is $5 shipping. So it's, of course, if you're local, even better, because then you get to enjoy all of the benefits like complimentary tastings and discounts and access to our events and things like that.
Great. That's great.
No, it's been a lot of fun working with Dry Creek, and I would agree with all the basically everything you said there in terms and just driving into just the level of really working with the customer, right, and treating customers as family. And I think that I was having a conversation with Bruce, who of course you know very well there, Darren.
Yeah,
And one of the things he said is that when somebody leaves the wine club, that Kim wants to know why, right? That really
sure.
is like a family. We care, that sort of thing. It's funny that you mentioned that. I did an event where we exclusively did Dry Creek wines. It was for about 100 individuals that were all peripheral to the real estate community. And that was incredibly well received,
Yeah,
and beyond incredibly well received. And so so much so that the organizer is heading out there in a couple weeks or a month from now, and is absolutely looking forward to using that benefit of the club,
Nice.
bringing 5 of her friends to go out there.
sure.
And that's exactly it. I think what I've enjoyed doing is presenting the wines in different ways. Certainly, the dinner that we talked about before, doing 5 entrees and 10 wines, is a little bit unusual. But I wouldn't have it any other way because that makes really for an interesting and
Yeah,
how often can you do that? Certainly we were not doing 3 ounce, 4 ounce, 5 ounce pours. They were very regulated, as people needed to actually be able to enjoy them by the time they get to wine number 10. But it's consistently been fantastic serving the wines, getting the feedback, and one thing I didn't mention when we talked about the pairings is while yes, the braised short rib, that's a no-brainer. I think my favorite pairing still was the lobster ravioli because we did that with a white and a red, right? So we did
nice.
that with the Chardonnay, and we did
Yeah.
it with the Pinot Noir, and both of those are beautiful with the lobster rav. And also fascinating was the different impressions that people had, where some people preferred the Chardonnay by itself, the Pinot by itself, but then with the food, those flip-flopped. But across the board, it was kind of a 50-50 response, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I did want to make one mention very recently. Very proud of this. Dry Creek Vineyard was just awarded the best winery in the Bay Area
Oh,
yep,
nice.
by SF Gate. So it was
yep.
a really, really big deal. We were recognized, the winery, about 15, 20 of us went down to receive the award at the Chase Center. And just, being reflective of the winemaking, the hospitality, everything that makes this, this engine go. Um, Pretty special to be recognized. There's a lot of wineries in the
Oh,
North
yeah.
Bay area, and to be
Yes.
recognized
Impressive.
as the best in the area, by peers and by guests is pretty amazing.
That's
Well, I
great.
think and I looked into that one because it's always interesting. And yes, to that exact point, it was based on reader reflections versus something that's paid advertising, all the other things, which you never know about. So now
Sure.
that is really a wild and
Yeah.
impressive
Yeah.
honor to get that.
Cheers to that. Well, I have a final question before we wrap. And so, because again, we're leaning into the food and wine pairings. A surprisingly good food and wine pairing that people might not think of trying that you've had that you would encourage people to try. It can be, of course, with Dry Creek Vineyards, but just something a great pairing that people should try that they probably haven't.
Um, well, okay. I love a lot of, maybe this is not that off the cuff, but um, Sauvignon Blanc, two things. Sauvignon Blanc with homemade guacamole,
Okay.
I think is, a winner.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not that, you
That's
know,
good. But hey, if people haven't done it, they should do it, huh?
Thai green curry with Sauvignon Blanc
Ooh.
is a winner as well. As long as it's not, like I said, screaming hot.
Hmm.
Um, I think those are great. I am too, everything has been done, right? David, everything has been done, but
Never know.
those are two that I really like. Um, I don't know. Maybe you'll go. Maybe some red vines and petite sirah. Who knows?
We'll do
Yeah,
that, Stephen.
it's interesting there, because Dry Creek is one of the rare ones to have the Petite Zin rosé, right, with the Petit Syrah
Yes,
and Zinfandel. So I'm still thinking about what to pair with that. I have no doubts there's some interesting things because there is a lot going on from a flavor perspective in that wine. So I think that that'll be a fun one to do. I haven't had the opportunity to do a lot of pairings with that yet. But the one that was fun was a sparkling Shannon,
Hmm.
and it was with a Dorito, red nacho style, with caviar, and
Whoa. All
that was
right.
absolutely a perfect pairing.
well, there
So
you go. There's your off the cuff
that was
That's
definitely off the cuff, and it's just funny, right? Because you have the wine, which is reasonably priced, you have the Dorito, which is very inexpensive,
for sure.
and the
And then you get
caviar was
caviar.
not inexpensive for the caviar that we had. So, but
wow.
it was absolutely incredible.
Well, that
But so
definitely.
there's mine.
David, what about you?
Oh man, let's
And
see.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, you know, I it's not super crazy, but I'm thinking I might because I still have a little of this red port. This is not super creative, but this Petit Sirah, I haven't tried this Petit Sirah, but I've had Petit Sirah with some dark chocolate before, and
Yeah,
especially if there's a little salt,
that would
salt
work
involved. So that I might have to try that. I do definitely push the limits of some interesting pairings. Some work, some don't. But that's how you check it out.
for
Well, and
sure.
some work for you and not for others, and vice versa
Yeah,
too, right?
I
So,
mean, leaving, you have a food and wine pairing. This is what you do, and I always tell people, drink what you want to drink and eat what you want to eat.
yeah,
I
exactly.
very rarely will choose my meal based on what I'm going to drink. I just,
yeah,
if I really want to think about it and really impress and try to get involved, I'll do it. But the food comes first. I want to eat, and I want that to be my sole, the sole motive rather than
yeah,
trying to tinker.
yeah.
Yeah, but you also have two hands to use them both, right? Two hands, two glasses.
There you go. You can always test. Yeah, and part of what I enjoy is just kind of trying different things, and yeah, not feeling like there's a perfect pairing out there, but just kind of paying attention to how, how does this, kind of like Steven was saying, how it can flip. I like this wine on its own. Some maybe
Yeah,
get even better with a dish. Some, it's like,
when you can
I like,
nail them both,
yeah,
the perfect food and with the perfect wine, and then they just go harmoniously
yeah,
together, then you're onto something.
yeah. Well, cheers to more of that with Dry Creek Vineyards.
I really appreciate you guys having me on. I
Yeah.
hope we can do this again.
No,
Yeah, so do I.
absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a couple possible follow-ups from this. So
Yeah,
we'll
and
sign off for now. We'll
I
sign
was
off
just gonna
now.
say, as my glass is empty, and not that I couldn't get more from the Corvin, but now it's a good time for dinner.
There you
So,
go.
You
All
guys
right, very good.
be well. Take care of
Yeah,
yourselves,
take
and
care.
I'm sure we'll talk soon.
might see
Sure.
you next week. Take care,
Cheers.
Darren.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cooking Chat Food and Wine Podcast. Check out the show notes at cookingchatfood.com/podcast and be sure to rate and subscribe to Cooking Chat wherever you get your podcasts.